We typically locate the beginning of an addiction at a specific moment. We trace it back to the second the first drink is poured, the first bet is placed, or the first endless social media scroll begins. When those actions spiral into destructive habits, we often view the result as a localized failure. The common assumption is that the person simply lacks willpower, or that they fell victim to the immediate chemical draw of the substance itself. Physician and author Dr. Gabor Maté suggests we're looking at the wrong nap. By analyzing the life histories of thousands of patients, he found that addiction isn't a byproduct of the substance, but a result of environmental conditions set decades earlier, during childhood. Under this model, an addiction is a highly evolved, unconscious coping mechanism. It's a psychological shield designed by the brain to protect the body from deep emotional wounds that often remain invisible to the person carrying them. This explains why fighting a compulsion with brute force willpower is so often ineffective. Willpower attacks a surface-level symptom. To actually break the loop, the silent, invisible logic of the past must be brought to the surface. We can map the biological requirements of a healthy childhood using two intersecting needs. The first is attachment, the need for safety, love, and connection. The second is authenticity, the ability to honestly express and feel our true internal emotions. A crisis occurs when these needs collide. If a child's sadness is met with rejection, the brain makes a survival calculation. Because an infant cannot physically survive without attachment, they instinctively suppress authenticity to secure love, severing connection to true emotions. If a child breaks their arm, society responds immediately. The injury is visible, the pain is validated, and medical treatment is applied. But an emotional fracture happens entirely out of sight. We usually define trauma by catastrophic events, but trauma is equally defined by what fails to happen. When a child experiences a total lack of emotional safety and validation, the brain registers that absence as a severe injury. As the years pass, this emotional suppression calcifies. The child grows into an adult who feels uncomfortable with vulnerability and lacks the internal machinery required to process pain. They are now navigating adult life with a permanent, invisible fracture. This creates a state of constant, low-grade distress, leaving them vulnerable to anything that acts as an external painkiller. When lingering emotional pain goes untreated, the adult brain acts mechanically. It scans the environment, searching for an anesthetic to shut down the distress. The primitive survival centers of the brain do not categorize behaviors as healthy or destructive. They run a very simple equation. They only calculate whether the pain successfully stops. This search for relief collides with a modern society that is digitally hyperconnected but emotionally isolated. Human biology evolved to rely on deep tribal attachment, and the resulting loneliness creates an agonizing void. This is a hungry ghost, a Buddhist concept depicting a creature with a massive empty stomach, but a neck too narrow to ever swallow food. It's a visualization of the addictive state, an unfillable void driving endless consumption without ever finding satisfaction. While we often stereotype the addict as someone on the margins of society, the same biological mechanism drives many highly successful individuals, including CEOs, politicians, and celebrities. In these cases, power, wealth, and status are utilized as high-functioning anesthetics. They are used to numb the deep-seated feeling of being unseen that began decades earlier. An addiction is not defined by the legality of the substance. It is defined by the relentless, insatiable function it serves in a temporary attempt to fill an empty emotional void. These suppressed emotional patterns do not end with the individual. They are often unconsciously transmitted through generations, moving from parent to child. A parent who never learned to regulate their own emotions may struggle to provide the emotional safety their child needs. This forces the child to make that survival calculation, sacrificing authenticity to maintain the connection. This cycle is rarely a matter of intentional malice. It is a biological consequence. A person cannot teach an emotional skill they were never helped to develop themselves. Breaking this cycle requires identifying the hidden mechanism behind the behavior. While awareness isn't an instant cure, it creates the first opening for change. By exposing the roots of a compulsion, it begins to lose its status as an unquestioned biological command. When facing an unhealthy habit,
The diagnostic question isn't why can't I stop? It's what pain is this behavior helping me escape, and what am I truly searching for? This shift in perspective moves the focus away from self-judgment. You cannot punish yourself into recovery. You can only understand yourself into freedom. But recognizing the cause of the wound is only the beginning. Once the root of the addiction is exposed, how does an adult brain actually begin to reverse decades of suppression and recover the authenticity it lost?